On today's episode of Adventures of Lamani, we're going to talk about the two heavy hitters in the distributing game, the book distributing game, whether it is Kindle Direct Publishing or Ingram Spark. I tested both and I'm going to tell you what I think. Stay tuned to find out more. Hello, Yin Lieblings. I'm Mari, author of the space opera The God Queen, who's been living in southern Germany since 2014. On today's episode, we're going to talk about Kindle Direct Publishing, or KDP, and Ingram Spark. I used both in my publication of The God Queen, and so I do have a little bit of experience, and I want to talk about those things today. But before we get started, hit that subscribe button and ring that bell. That lets me and YouTube know you like this kind of content and you want to see more. Here on Adventures of Lamani, we talk about living abroad, writing, and everything in between. As I said before, I used KDP to publish The God Queen's ebook, and then I used Ingram for, well, the other ebooks, the EPUBs, as well as my paperback book distribution. As you can see, as you saw in the beginning, here are the two copies. This is from KDP and this is from Ingram Spark. I will actually go into why they look so different. It actually has to do with the design thing. This is my, since I designed the cover of The God Queen, but I'll get into that when I talk about quality. But I figured I'd let you know this is where I'm getting my experience. So yeah, let's just go ahead and get started with number one, pricing. Kindle Direct Publishing is free. Ingram Spark is not. There is actually a pricing table when you go onto the Ingram Spark website. It is $25 just for ebook, $49 for print, and a special price of $49 for ebook and print. It sounds a little weird, but for example, with I went for the $49 for ebook and print, which only includes either paperback or hardback. So if you do a paperback and then you want to later do a hardback, then you have to add on that extra $49. This is just something to keep in mind, especially if you have a very tight budget. You can, start off in KDP and then expand to Ingram later, but that's up to you. And obviously you are the one who's going to make the final decision on, what you're going to spend your money on. Number two, ISBNs. Amazon, KDP can give you an ISBN. Ingram Spark does not, and you do have to bring your own. Now, if you are unaware of the price of an ISBN, for one single ISBN can cost you through Boker, which is the American agency, it'll cost you about $125 for one ISBN. And you have to remember that you need an ISBN for every format of book that you plan on publishing, whether it is ebook. Well, actually, you have Kindle, the Kindle ebook, which is Mobi, that requires one. EPUB for all the other e-readers, that requires one. Paperback requires one. Hardback, audiobook. Yeah, that's just 5 right there. And that's just for one book. So that is something you need to take into account. However, if you obviously, since you need more, going back to the whole pricing thing, it is usually recommended to buy a bundle. Now, you can go through, again, Boker. Like I said, one ISBN costs $125, but you can get a package of 10 for $295. Since I live in Germany, I had to go through the German agency, and that cost me about 180 euros, which translates to about $205 for a package of 10, which was awesome. But you have to, that is one thing you do have to take into consideration. You do need to buy the ISBN in the country where you are publishing. And if you are self-publishing, that is the country you live in. Now, the pro in having a free ISBN through KDP is free. Again, this is going into the whole, budget thing that I talked about with pricing. But the con is you are then technically not the publisher. And if you are a person like me who wants full control, you should buy your own ISBN. So my recommendation is, if you do need to spend money on something, I highly do recommend, especially if you want to go into ebooks or hardback or whatever, you should get your own ISBNs and you can bring them to KDP. However, just FYI, when you do publish your Mobi, your Kindle ebook through Amazon, which is what I did, I went ahead and used their ISBN because Mobi only works for Kindle through KDP. So I'm not going to waste an ISBN on them. So I just went ahead and did that because, well, then they count as published, yeah, whatever. But for the EPUB and paperback, I used separate ISBN numbers. Again, this is just something you have to think about on your own, but that is what I did for the God Queen. Number 3, bookstores. Ingram Spark can get you into bookstores. KDP can't. They claim that they can. You could pay, you know, there was a time you could pay, I don't know if it's still available. I didn't even consider it, but you could go into KDP Wide and pay an extra fee and they will get you into bookstores. The problem is, like, if you think about it, Amazon is the direct competition to bookstores. So why would a bookstore buy a book through them? And chances are Amazon will also charge them a ridiculous price for it. So, I mean, they're just, if you want to get into a bookstore, don't go through KDP, honestly. Ingram Spark has connections with, I think, about 39,000 distributors all over the world. So, you know, I looked up, for example, Jenna Moressi's The Savior's Champion in Thalia, which is the German book chain, and it is there. I don't think Jenna planned for it to be sold in Germany, but it is. So that was a big thing for me because I have a lot of people here in Germany that were interested in my book, and so I wanted to make sure that that was available. However, going through KDP, it does technically make it available through like all of the Amazon stores. Plenty of my friends have bought here in Germany have bought their God Queen ebook through Amazon Deutschland. So in terms of distribution within Amazon, that's fine. But if you want to see it if you want to be able to order it through a bookstore, you know, if you don't want to order through Amazon, especially for my friends in Switzerland, Amazon Deutschland, there's really no Amazon in Switzerland. There used to be Amazon Deutschland, used to curry to Switzerland, but not anymore, much to the dismay of my Swiss friends. So that's a whole other separate topic. I could probably do a video on that. But Book Depository does send free shipping to Switzerland. And that was one big thing for me, so that my Swiss friends could get the book if they were interested. That was another reason why I didn't actually stick with just Amazon, because yeah, it kind of goes into the bigger topic of wide distribution, but that was a big thing for me. One of the other reasons why Ingram can get you into bookstores versus Amazon is because bookstores require that they're able to return your book. And Amazon doesn't necessarily allow for that, but Ingram does. So, and what I mean by return is usually a bookstore will buy, say 3 of your books to put it on their shelves. And usually they give a book about 6 months to be sold. And if it's not sold, because, you know, they're itching for space, they will want to return it so they have space for other books that will sell. Amazon, like I said, doesn't really allow for returns. So that's another reason why Amazon is out. Ingram allows it, but obviously somebody has to foot the bill, because when they return it, they expect their money back. And who's going to pay for it? You, the author, you're going to pay for it. And how much does that cost? Well, that depends, because there are 2 options on what you can do when the book is returned. There is, well, either way, you have to pay the wholesale price, so the price it took to make the book. And you can either have it shipped to you, which is adding an extra $2 on top of that, or the book gets destroyed, which costs you nothing except having paid for the book. The problem is also that this $2 shipping fee only works within the United States. I live in Germany, so obviously that $2 shipping cost doesn't count for me unless I wanted to have it shipped to my parents' house. And also, you get to choose this option, whether or not you want to allow returns. To be honest, I didn't go that route. I'm starting out, man. Like, I don't really have money to be able to pay bookstores back if they end up having to return my book. And I know that sounds really disheartening, but the thing is, guys, like, you can still go to the bookstore and say, hey, I want to order the God Queen, which you should be doing. You go and you say you want to order The Golden Compass by Philip Pullman, or a quarter, whatever. You order whatever book you want and they will order it. They'll have it for you and you can go pick it up. So your books still end up in bookstores. They're still showing up on websites. My book showed up on the Barnes & Noble website. In fact, plenty of people pre-ordered my book that it showed up on their newsletter. So you still show up in bookstores, but not always in the brick and mortar buildings themselves. Now there's other ways you can go about doing that, which I can talk about in another video, but it's just something you do need to take into consideration in terms of budgeting. Do you want to pay for those returns? Now, say you say yes, that you want to return those books, and then later on you decide, no, I don't want to do this. It actually takes 6 months for Ingram to essentially change, like to turn over that information to all of their bookstores, which is a long time, because in that 6 months you're still paying for those returns. However, if you choose no, which is what I did, and then later on I decide, yes, I am going to, allow for returns, then that's effective immediately. So again, this is just something you have to keep in mind, but yeah, that's what I did. Number 4, proofs. So KDP allows you to order 5 proofs before you are expected to publish it and go into distribution. When you get a proof, it does come with this little pretty band here that says not for resale. When you order through Ingram Spark, you essentially get the final product. However, this does also go into pricing. So this is another reason why KDP is great with the free price tag. If you make a mistake, it costs you nothing to upload a newer version. And I mean, you do pay for like the next printed copy to make sure that the formatting works. But when you make a correction, it doesn't cost you anything. However, with Ingram, if you do make a mistake and you have to upload a new version, depending, like if it's a correction that's required for both the ebook and for the published book, that will cost you an extra $50 because it is $25 per format. So in my recommendation, you go through KDP and play with the formatting, because they do a really good job. Actually, with Ingram, you get an e-proof through the email, and it is, in my opinion, it was a monumental pain in the ass, because it didn't want to open on my computer, it didn't want to open on my phone, and I think it only opened on my husband's MacBook, and only with like, I don't know. I wonder if it's because our internet sucks out here in the country. I don't know, but trying to do the e-proof through Ingram before I, hit accept so that it's ready for distribution, it was a pain in the ass. As opposed to with Kindle, you have the Kindle reviewer, which I will actually make another video on formatting, so you can actually see how you can test it. You can do it on their website, but there's a way of doing it with your actual Kindle or your actual e-reader it's a way to do it that I prefer to do it, actually, because I actually see how it looks physically and not theoretically on a screen. But with the printed version, I do recommend going through KDP, because whatever format, however it looks on KDP, translates one-to-one into Ingram Spark. So however it will end up looking through KDP, it will look like on Ingram, and you can save yourself all that money in making corrections. Number 5 is quality. So, I mean, the books themselves, weight-wise, I think actually the KDP is a little heavier, perhaps. I don't know, it could be. It's all in my head. So as you can see here, let's see, can you look at the colors? There we go. So here, this is through KDP, and this is through Ingram. As you can see, KDP has, this blinding white paper, and through Ingram you have this cream that really looks more like a real book. Now, I know you're probably wondering about the cover itself. Now, I made a mention earlier that this has to do with a design thing. So I designed the cover of the God Queen, and I'm gonna put here on the screen up here what the design looked like, the actual image that I sent. That's for Ingram Spark though. As you can see how the blues actually look a little different. The reason why this looks darker is because if you can see around the lettering, I have this like black background, like this is shadow here, not really a shadow, but like it's a glow. And it's also here on the back. Yeah, so you see this, and so on the image, it's just to make sure that the white doesn't get drowned out by all the color. unfortunately, it made the image really dark, and it was too dark in my opinion. I wasn't much of a fan, especially here, like on the spine. I wasn't a fan. So when I edited the image and I made it lighter, and it still looks, in my opinion, it still looks dark on the image itself that I sent to Ingram, but yeah, my goal was to make sure that the color of the background didn't get covered, because that was the big thing I was going for, was this color scheme, because in my opinion, it really catches the eye. So that's just something to keep in mind, how the colors are going to look on your screen versus how it's going to look in printed form. Other than that, the quality to get, in comparison, they look pretty similar. They look pretty good. But for me, I mean, it was with the paper color. Like, as soon as I saw the Ingram, the Ingram version, I just thought, wow, now it really looks like a book. Sorry, KDP, sorry. But again, this has to go with, what you're paying for. KDP, it is free, so I'm sure they also use a cheaper quality of paper, and that's fine. That's totally fine. Again, this is all a budget thing. Go if you don't have the money for Ingram, go to KDP first with your own ISBN, and then you can always expand to wide later. That's not a problem as long as you have your own ISBN. Number 6, hardback. Now this is an easy one. KDP does not do hardbacks. Ingram does. So if you want to see a hardback version of your book, you have to go through Ingram Spark. I do have plans to do a hardback version of The God Queen. That will happen later. That's plans for 2020. But that was one reason. It was just easier to kind of add that on. And number 7, customer service. So I had some problems with Amazon and with Ingram Spark separately, and I found their customer service to both of them not to be too bad. But then again, I live in Europe where customer service is shit. So my bar was already set very, 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 very low. So you'll have to take my opinion on that with a grain of salt. So with Amazon, my problems were my author site took a lot longer to set up, to verify, but that was a quick email and that worked out fine. The only thing I did have a problem with was with Amazon Deutschland with pre-order. Everything was working fine until the day before my release, and suddenly my book was no longer available. That really pissed me off. So I sent an email to Amazon Deutschland in German telling them that if they don't get their act together and fix this shit, I'm going to start telling everybody to go to Book Depository to order my book. Yeah, that happened. That got fixed pretty quickly, so that was nice. But with Ingram Spark, one of my problems had to do with the publishing house part of my information. So FYI, I don't have a publishing house. I have my company, so to speak, under my name, because I don't have the whole LLC thing that you hear a lot of AuthorTubers talk about. I don't really have that out here in Germany. It works a little differently when you have your own company, so to speak. I am registered as freelance, so it had to be under my own name. That's going to be a whole other video, because I have to kind of go into like German tax laws and the differences like with tax registration and all. But anyway, but I wasn't sure how I was going to do that in the beginning when I first created my Ingram Spark account, so I put a publishing house as a placeholder name. Then when I decided it was going to be under my name, or even just as ML Tishner, because that is my legal name, at least part of it, for some reason, every time I changed it to ML Tishner, it kept going back to the placeholder name. And this was really frustrating. So I emailed Ingram Spark about it, and at first they didn't respond, which was really annoying. And so the only way I was able to get them to respond was when I got my the e-proof to accept or reject. I rejected it, and when they asked me a reason, I said, because the publishing house is wrong and you won't get back to me. Then they got back to me, so that was nice. And they were really good about it, because it was actually some weird IT programming problem, and they sent me regular updates to make sure that I was not forgotten, and they're trying to fix it as soon as they could. And they did fix it, and it was great, and woohoo, very happy. So yeah, Either way, you know, you will run into some hiccups during your pre-sale. Pretty much everybody who goes through, you know, they all have their horror stories to tell you, but at least in my experience going through Amazon.com, Amazon Deutschland, and Ingram Spark, it worked out pretty well. So my final thoughts. I think KDP is great if you're starting out and you have a very tight budget. Like I said, especially if you just buy your own ISBNs, which seems like a big price tag now, but when we talk about control, that in my opinion, that's just really important. That's an investment that I think you will not regret. Then you can easily just go into Ingram Spark later. That's not a problem. For me personally, especially living in Germany and going to the States, you know, publishing my book mainly for the States, distribution was a very big thing for me. I didn't want to put my eggs in the Amazon basket, so to speak. I like variety, I like options, and so Ingram Spark gave that to me, as well as the idea of wanting to go hardback later on. So all of these things into account. And I had the funds for it. I just went ahead and went to Ingram Spark. But, you know, in the end, you have to decide what is best for you. I said KDP is not a terrible option, especially if you're starting out. So it is definitely worth considering. Anyway, that's all I've got for today. So thanks for joining me. If you're new here, please consider subscribing and give this video a thumbs up. You want to do it. You want to do it. Definitely leave me a comment if you have any questions, comments, concerns, or if there's a topic you'd like to see on this channel. The God Queen is available in both ebook and paperback. I have the links for everything below. And don't forget to connect with me on social media, either through Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook. Also, check out my newsletter, where you will get the most up-to-date information on books, projects, pugs, and giveaways. Just for subscribing, you'll get a free character sheet to use, as well as the first 6 chapters of my debut space opera, The God Queen. And that's all I've got for you today. Until next time, ade!